You think silence is weakness. That's why you keep losing. Because while you're filling every room with explanations, someone else is watching, calculating, and when they finally move, you won't see it coming. Machiavelli spent years studying power in Renaissance Italy, a time when one wrong word could end your family line. And what he discovered wasn't about who spoke the loudest or who had the best arguments. It was about who knew when to disappear into silence so complete, so strategic, that it became a weapon nobody saw coming. He called it the art of appearing one thing while being another. But there's a deeper layer most people miss. It's not just about deception. It's about the power that lives in the space where people can't read you, can't predict you, can't calculate their next move because you've given them nothing to calculate with. Think about the last time someone had real power over you. Was it the person yelling? The person making demands? Or was it the person who said nothing, just looked at you with an expression you couldn't decode, leaving you to fill the silence with your own spiraling thoughts? The psychologist Edward T. Hall called this high-context communication, where what's not said carries more weight than what is. But Machiavelli took it further. He understood that strategic silence isn't passive, it's predatory. When you're silent in the right way, you create a vacuum. And nature, human nature especially, abhors a vacuum. People will rush to fill it. They'll over-explain. They'll reveal their fears. They'll make concessions you never asked for just to escape the unbearable weight of your silence. But here's what makes this dangerous. You've been on the wrong side of this equation your entire life. You're the one explaining, the one breaking silence because it feels uncomfortable, the one giving away your position, your thoughts, your strategies, all because you can't tolerate the pressure of not being understood. And somewhere, someone is watching you do this, taking notes, learning your patterns, waiting for the perfect moment to use your own words against you. Because the person who controls the silence controls the room. And you've been giving that control away for free. Not all silence is created equal. Machiavelli understood there are 3 types, and only one gives you real power. The first is the silence of fear. This is the silence of someone who's afraid to speak, afraid to be seen, afraid to take up space. It's the silence of the child who learned that being quiet means being safe. This isn't power, it's trauma wearing a mask of composure. And people can feel the difference. They sense your fear in your silence, and it invites violation rather than respect. The second is the silence of contempt. This is the passive-aggressive silence, the cold shoulder, the silent treatment. It's silence weaponized through withdrawal, designed to punish. And while it can be effective in the short term, it's ultimately weak because it's reactive. It broadcasts exactly what you're feeling, just without words. You think you're being mysterious, but you're actually screaming your hurt through silence. But the third type, this is what Machiavelli meant. This is the silence of assessment. The silence of someone so secure in themselves, so clear about their objectives, that they don't need to fill space with noise. They're observing, processing, calculating their next move with the precision of a chess master who sees 7 moves ahead. This silence isn't emotional. It's strategic. It's not about hiding. It's about positioning. The person who has mastered this can sit in a room full of chaos, say nothing, and somehow emerge as the one everyone looks to for answers. The Roman historian Tacitus wrote about Emperor Tiberius, who was famous for this exact quality. Senators would make passionate speeches, arguing for hours, and Tiberius would sit motionless, his face unreadable. The silence would stretch until people started changing their positions, withdrawing proposals, second-guessing themselves. All without Tiberius saying a word. Why? Because his silence wasn't absence. It was presence so concentrated that it bent the room's gravity toward him. Here's the uncomfortable part. You probably don't have this. You have one of the first 2 types. Fear or contempt. And deep down you know it. Because if you had the third type, you wouldn't be seeking validation through constant communication. You'd be comfortable with the discomfort. You'd trust your silence to work for you rather than against you. The question is, can you learn it? Let's get specific. How does strategic silence actually create power? First, it inverts the social economy of value. In most interactions, the person who wants something more is at a disadvantage. They speak more, explain more, convince more. But when you're strategically silent, you force the other person into that position, even if they came in with more power than you. The psychologist Robert Cialdini identified this as scarcity, the principle that what's rare becomes valuable. When you speak constantly, your words become abundant and therefore cheap. When you speak rarely, each word becomes an event people actually listen to. But there's a deeper psychological mechanism at play. Humans are pattern recognition machines. We're constantly trying to predict what others will do next because predictability equals safety. When you're strategically silent, you break the pattern. You become unpredictable. And unpredictability triggers a primal response, wariness mixed with fascination. Think about how we treat wild animals versus domesticated ones. A dog that's friendly and predictable, we pet it casually. A wolf that could be friendly or could be dangerous, we approach with complete attention, total respect. Strategic silence makes you the wolf. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." Strategic silence is how you maintain that gap, the gap between appearance and reality, the gap that protects you, the gap that gives you room to maneuver. But here's the twist nobody talks about. This only works if you actually have something backing it up. Silence without substance is just absence. The emperor with no clothes can stand silently all he wants. He's still naked. The real power of strategic silence is that it forces people to project onto you what they fear you might be. And if you've built genuine capability, genuine options, genuine strength, their projections will err on the side of overestimating you rather than underestimating you. That's the secret. Silence doesn't create power from nothing. It amplifies the power you actually have by shrouding it in mystery. It makes people wonder, what do they know that I don't? What are they capable of that they're not showing? And in that wondering, they give you more space, more respect, more power than you might objectively deserve. Because humans always assume the unknown contains a threat. So how do you develop this? How do you move from reactive silence born of fear to strategic silence born of strength? First, build what Machiavelli called reputation armor. Before your silence can have weight, you need substance. Master something. Build something. Achieve something. Create a track record that makes people wonder what you're thinking when you go quiet. Without this foundation, silence is just awkwardness. Second, practice the three-question rule. When someone asks you something, especially something probing or challenging, don't answer the first time or the second. By the third time they ask, and they will ask multiple times because silence makes people uncomfortable, you answer. But now you've established that your words require effort to extract, which makes them more valuable. Third, master your physical tells. Strategic silence fails if your body is screaming your emotions. Your face must be neutral. Your breathing must be calm. Your posture must be settled. This requires practice. The Stoics called this apatheia, not lack of feeling, but mastery over the display of feeling. But here's the part nobody wants to hear. This comes with a price. The philosopher Martin Buber distinguished between I-thou relationships, authentic connection, and it relationships, strategic transaction. Strategic silence by its nature moves you toward it. You become more effective, more powerful, more protected, but also more alone. Because real intimacy requires vulnerability. Real connection requires letting people see you. And strategic silence, by definition, keeps people at a distance. Machiavelli himself experienced this. He was so skilled at political maneuvering, so adept at strategic silence and careful positioning, that when he finally fell from power, he had no real friends to catch him. He died in relative obscurity, his brilliance preserved only in the books nobody read until after he was gone. So you have to ask yourself, what do you actually want? Power or connection? Respect or love? Safety or intimacy? The uncomfortable truth is that you probably can't have both in equal measure. The person who is fully known cannot be fully feared. The person who is fully feared cannot be fully loved. Strategic silence gives you power, but it costs you something precious in return. There's a moment in every person's life when they decide which game they're playing. Are you optimizing for being liked or being respected, for comfort or for power, for transparent authenticity or for strategic positioning? Most people never consciously make this choice. They drift, trying to have both, ending up with neither. They want to be loved, but also feared. Known, but also mysterious. Vulnerable, but also protected. And they wonder why they feel perpetually off balance. Machiavelli forced the question because he lived in a world where the wrong choice meant death. We live in softer times, which is both a blessing and a curse. A blessing because the stakes are lower, a curse because the lack of consequences lets us avoid the hard truths about who we are and what we actually want. Here's what I know about you. You clicked on this video because some part of you is tired of being overlooked, tired of explaining yourself, tired of giving everything away and watching others, quieter, more calculating others, take what should be yours. You want the power that comes with strategic silence, but you're afraid of what it might cost you, afraid of becoming cold, afraid of losing connection, afraid of turning into the kind of person you've spent your life resenting, and that fear is worth listening to. Because the danger isn't in learning strategic silence. The danger is in forgetting why you learned it in the first place. Machiavelli wrote The Prince not as a celebration of ruthlessness, but as a manual for survival in a ruthless world. Strategic silence isn't about becoming cruel. It's about becoming conscious. It's about choosing when to speak and when to hold space, rather than letting your fear or need for approval make that choice for you. The most dangerous form of silence isn't the kind that manipulates. It's the kind that forces everyone in the room, including you, to confront what's actually happening beneath all the noise. So here's my question. When the room goes quiet, what are you most afraid people will see? Because whatever that is, that's where your real power is hiding.